Hi, I'm Youssef, founder and chef patron of Kitchen Theory, an experience design studio based in London that works on researching and developing multi-sensory food experiences. For around a decade, I've worked with leading experimental psychologist Professor Charles Spence from Oxford University on understanding the sensory and psychological relationship that we as humans have with food. Over this time, we've developed numerous weird and wonderful experimental food experiences, but we also channel this research towards looking at ways to design better food experiences which encourage people to make more nutritious and sustainable food choices in restaurants, but also in schools, care homes, hospitals, and even at home. Now, over the last couple of years, I've had a growing fascination with space travel, particularly space tourism and long-duration space missions. Space tourism because it feels like it's about to be realized within my lifetime, and anyone in hospitality can tell you tourists can be picky about their food, especially ones paying the kind of fees behind this sort of trip. As for long-duration space missions, unlike current space travelers who are willing to sacrifice their quality of enjoyment of food for a few weeks or months, those traveling further afield will undoubtedly suffer a loss of well-being unless they can enjoy their food. Now, that may seem a little extreme, but we all know how important food is to us on both a physical and emotional level. Research has shown that the brain is capable of experiencing equal, if not greater amounts of pleasure from eating and from consuming food than it can from an activity like having sex. So let's look at the science behind flavour. Flavour is defined by the Oxford Dictionary as being a combination of your sense of taste, so that's salty, bitter, sour, sweet, and umami, everything that you experience on the tongue, and your sense of smell. So that's both orthonasal, everything that you smell around you, and retronasal, everything that you smell through the back of the olfactory system every time you chew or swallow. But the truth is that all of your senses come together in a rich cross-modal way in the brain to formulate your perceptions, judgments, expectations, enjoyment, and satiety of food. This is what flavour really is. But space poses a number of challenges in this regard. The physical environment means that our senses won't work in the same way they do here on Earth. An example to illustrate this, which is a little closer to home, is aeroplane meals. I doubt many of you have ever walked off a flight raving about the quality of the food. And this is partially has to do with both the effect that altitude has on restricting our sense of smell, as well as the sound of the engine and cabin noise pollution, which has been proven to reduce people's sensations or perceptions of salty and sweet sensations, hence the need for more salt and sugar in airline foods typically. Our sense of smell is actually vitally important to our enjoyment of flavour, and researchers have estimated that as much as 80% of what you're actually perceiving as flavour, through your chemical senses at least, comes from your sense of smell. What's more is that your sense of smell is inextricably linked to your well-being. In fact, research has shown that those who lose their sense of smell in the long term suffer from a greater sense of depression than those who lose their sense of vision. For many who lose their sense of smell, which is known as anosmia, there is a loss of appetite. They can become more socially withdrawn and lack any interest in shared food experiences, which as humans is really, really important to us, and deep-rooted kind of activity that we enjoy. Just think about how your food lacks flavour when you have a cold. And in many cases, you experience a subsequent loss of appetite, all of which links back to a suppression of your sense of smell. So the question becomes, how do we overcome these challenges in space? How can we ensure that those travelling to Mars can continue to enjoy the same quality of life and the special relationship with food that we're so lucky to have? Unlike vision, we don't have correcting aids like glasses for our noses, but there are a few ways in which we can incorporate more impactfully aroma components into the design of dishes. These elements can act as aromatic signals, making our sense of smell more salient, and in turn making us more mindful, or making us kind of mindfully encouraging us to activate our sense of smell. With this in mind, I wanted to share with you some ideas on how, down here on Earth, the team at Kitchen Theory incorporate such aromatic cues into our dishes. First of all, I have a bowl here with, let's say we've got some soup in here. Now, soup is already kind of quite a warming aromatic dish, but with the addition, oops, let's try that again. But with the addition of this bubble here, you can see how we can turn it into a much more kind of visual aromatic experience. So when we pop the bubble, whoop, there we go, you can see the aroma kind of coming up, and now I'm getting this lovely kind of whiff of kind of sweet berry aromas. So maybe that visual cue of seeing the smoke there, maybe that can in some way get us to trigger our sense of smell and engage us more into that sense and that sensation. Next up, we have a simple atomizer, which can be used to disperse any droplets of aroma into the air. In this case, we have the aroma of caramel, which I'm sure would pair well with any nice dessert or sweet treat. Again, it's the orthonasal kind of activation of taking in that aroma and smell when you see the atomizer being dispersed. Again, making us more mindful, making the idea of aroma and paying attention, making us more mindful of aroma, just bringing that to the forefront of our minds. Now, next up, we have this interesting device. It's a fork, which is called an Aroma Fork. And it has this little kind of piece of blotting paper which has been scented that you put right here. So it's located just by where it kind of goes into your mouth cavity. The idea being, as you're kind of eating away and putting the fork right near your lips, that you're getting that little bit of blotting paper near the nose. The idea here being that as you put the cutlery in your mouth, the aroma of the food will be inhaled along with it. That's interesting. I mean, perhaps you can think of ways of bringing aroma into cutlery in an interesting sort of way. And finally, an interesting little one here. This is an example of a scratch and sniff bacon patch that was developed by Professor Spence, who I mentioned earlier on. This patch was developed for veganuary in an attempt to help meat eaters keep bacon cravings at bay. Now, while I'm not sure how successfully it did the job, the idea of using this very basic technology, perhaps on pouches or wrappers of space foods, it may be possible to heighten the aromatic component of whatever it is, the dish or the food that's being consumed. So that's just a few of the existing methods for heightening our perception of the aroma within foods we eat. But there are undoubtedly new ways which can be developed specifically for space travel. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about our research, and I hope I've inspired some ideas on how we can overcome some of the sensory challenges of space and make sure that we get people to Mars with a good meal in their belly. Have a great day.